Now the latest ITV News in the Calendar region with Duncan Wood.
Hello everyone, welcome to ITV News and Monday night's calendar. I'm Duncan Wood and tonight we're coming live to you from the heart of the green revolution. I am surrounded by the latest technology which is bringing you the leading forms of sustainable energy. It's crucial to tackling climate change and saving the planet. And tonight we're going to find out why the eyes of the world are on here, the Humber, our region and the coastline. We're going to be heading out into the North Sea with Michael Billington as he investigates the future of the power generated at the world's largest offshore wind farm and meets the people who are making it happen.
Join us later in the programme 100 metres up above the North Sea to find out how our region is powering our transition to green energy.
We're live in Glasgow with James Webster as world leaders arrive for COP26, a conference designed to set real goals for the future. And John Mitchell's down on the farm to talk to us about extreme weather events that are affecting all of us. And we'll be putting one family to the test to see if they can change their ways and make a real difference in their own home.
Now I've got kids, it sort of hit me the fact that I have to, or I'm wanting to leave something better behind.
That's all to come, but tonight we are live at the Siemens Gamesa blade factory in Hull on the site of the old docks. It is the first time in the world that a live transmission has come from one of these facilities. We're going to find out why it's crucial and what role it does play in the green revolution very shortly. It is the biggest facility of its kind in the UK. In fact, the turbine next to me is almost done. The guys are working on it right now. It's heading for Hornsea 1, the largest wind farm in the world, which is 75 miles off Hull. There's another one in here that's heading for Taiwan too. Find out more about this place very shortly, but what are the effects of climate change on our region as the world leaders meet for COP26 in Glasgow? We have our first report now from Lisa Adlam.
Over centuries, the East Coast has been slowly retreating against the power of the North Sea. The soft boulder clay which makes up these cliffs is easily eroded by the wind and the waves. But it's now some of the fastest eroding coastline in the world as climate change speeds up a process which in many places has become irreversible. And nowhere is that more evident than a few miles away in Aldborough, where a whole community faces that stark reality. On Seaside Road, what was once a prime coastal location is now a road to nowhere. Huge chunks of tarmac cracking and collapsing at an alarming rate. Along the Holderness coastline, around 4 metres is being lost every year, leaving those for whom this is home living on the brink. 90-year-old Alan Bartle moved to Seaside Road 30 years ago. In that time, he's watched successive neighbours lose their homes as the land beneath them has disappeared. When you moved here, what was this road like?
Well, there was another 5 or 6 cottages between me and the sea, and they've all gone. And there were more cottages across the road, they've gone. Providing it doesn't overtake me, it's grand. I like it, that's why I came here, because it's nice. Everybody wants to live by the sea, don't they?
But experts say that may eventually become impossible in villages like Aldborough. While sea defences can protect some areas of key infrastructure, in others, land will have to be abandoned.
There are going to have to be places, and the East Coast is a great example of that, where we need to retreat and accept the fact.
At Hull University, scientists' research is leading the way in predicting how our coasts will change in the future, how quickly and the role that climate change is playing.
We know that climate change will result in two main things in the UK. Periods of intense rainfall, so periods of wetter wet, and periods of drier dry. So these extremes will become more frequent. We're already seeing evidence of that. We also know that we'll have periods of intense or more intense storm activity, wave loading in the North Sea. Those two things combined are resulting in the acceleration that we're seeing in the coastal cliff retreat.
It's a combination that has equally devastating consequences further inland, in places like Fish Lake near Doncaster, where the tide influences the level of the River Don and prevents land from draining quickly, and where, following heavy rainfall 2 years ago this month, flooding left this village underwater. Roads, businesses, farmland and 170 homes inundated. Mary Bulmer's home was one of them, and it was only 3 months ago that she was finally able to move out of the caravan she's been living in while the damage was repaired. The last time Fish Lake saw floods on such a scale was 1947, the year Mary was born, but she fears it will be more common for future generations.
I mean, it's not us, we're not going to see the worst of it, are we? It's, you know, we wouldn't have thought of, well, I've got 3 grandchildren.
£12 million has been spent repairing and improving flood defences across South Yorkshire, £3 million of that around Fish Lake. But for the Environment Agency, simply building more cannot be the only answer.
It does feel in this area that we're living on the front line of the climate emergency. We need to make more space for water and slow the flow, and also need to plan where and how we build our houses and our critical infrastructure to make it more resilient to flooding.
Authorities like Doncaster will be looking to COP26 to make the decisions and find the solutions to help them get there. It's been said it's our best last chance for change as a global community. For local communities like this one, it could be the key to their very survival. Lisa Adlam, ITV News, Fish Lake near Doncaster.
Well, on top of the problems highlighted there by Lisa, the Humber is actually the most carbon-intensive industrial cluster in the country, giving off a staggering 12.4 million tonnes of carbon dioxide a year. It's from manufacturing industries, steel plants, petrochemical refineries, power generators, which do provide more than 360,000 jobs, but are simply not sustainable. It's all about reducing the amount of greenhouse gases we're putting into the atmosphere. The biggest is carbon dioxide. Now, they're released when we burn coal, oil and gas to use as energy in our homes, businesses and for transport. They trap the sun's heat, warming up the planet and causing climate change. The more gases around the Earth, the hotter it gets. Now, net zero is where the total amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere stops increasing, and scientists say achieving that will stop temperatures rising. But the word net is really important because it is all a balancing act. It's not possible to stop everything that releases greenhouse gases. So once we have reduced all the carbon emissions that we can prevent, we can capture and store carbon emissions that are already in the atmosphere. If we subtract enough to make up for any new emissions, the difference is net zero. This really is a multi-billion-pound industry on the banks of the Humber. On the north, they build the blades. On the south, they operate the wind farms. That's where Michael Billington is for us live tonight. Michael?
Well, Duncan, this is already the largest operations base on the planet for offshore wind. And here in the Humber, the industry expects a 6-fold increase in the number of jobs in the next 5 years. The government wants to quadruple offshore wind by the end of the decade, and it wants all of Britain's electricity to come from renewable sources by 2035. In fact, we can take a look now at just how well we're performing on that particular target. These are real-time energy production figures that tell us in the last hour in Yorkshire, for instance, just over 40% of the region's electricity came from wind power, but it also shows that we're still relying on a fossil fuel, gas. to make up around 20% of the total power generated. So it's inevitable, with such big plans for renewable energy, that the country will start to rely on the kind of offshore operations that are happening in our region. As the sun breaks the horizon several miles out from the Humber estuary, we're travelling to the place where one of our most abundant natural resources can be found, and where giant turbines are built to harness its power.
Basically, it's a massive opportunity. It's a growing industry, and it's a real exciting job, to be honest, to be out here and, well, servicing and maintaining these massive wind turbines. So yeah, I quite enjoy that factor. Really, it's something different. It gets you sort of your blood pumping a bit. It's quite exciting, and it's not just a sort of easy drive to work every day. It's a bit more exciting than that.
5 miles into the North Sea, harnesses and hooks are an essential part of the kit to make the climb onto the turbines at Westermost Rough. The commute is not for the faint-hearted.
First time on the turbine, I was quite nervous, but yeah, the view you get, you won't find many other places, would you? And yeah, it's got that wow factor on it.
Jack from Grimsby is one of those who's taken advantage of the rapid growth of renewables in our region.
40, 50 years ago, it was oil and gas was the big rage, and now I feel like the wind industry around here is a big rage. So yeah, I feel fortunate to be in the position I'm in. So.
Do you think it's a job for life?
Oh yeah, 100%, yeah.
Westermost Rough was Ørsted's first wind farm in the Humber. 100 metres up, the view from the top is spectacular, and the reason it's built here is pretty clear too. There are 35 wind turbines here at Westermost Rough. Together they generate enough electricity to power 190,000 homes. But this is just one small part of a major offshore operation out here in the North Sea. In 2020, the huge Hornsea 1 wind farm became fully operational. This record breaker is 5 times bigger and much further offshore than Westermost Rough. It lies 75 miles off the Yorkshire coast. With 174 turbines, it generates 1.2 gigawatts of electricity, enough to power more than 1 million homes. That's the equivalent of Sheffield, Leeds, Hull, Lincoln, Doncaster, Bradford and York combined. It's currently the world's biggest offshore wind farm, but when Hornsea 2 becomes operational next year, it will succeed Hornsea 1 as the biggest. That will be succeeded by Hornsea 3, although building work has yet to begin. Together, 570 turbines would generate enough electricity to power up to 5 million homes, a sixth of the entire population. The nation's ambitions for offshore wind are huge. The government wants all Britain's electricity to be generated using renewables by 2035. It presents inevitable challenges.
So this industry, there's going to be vast growth in.
Ørsted's Lauren Little says the rapid expansion of offshore wind needs a ready supply of skilled workers.
Today we've got 27,000 jobs in the offshore wind industry, but that's going to go up to 69,000 jobs by 2026. So we need to find people to do these jobs, and we need a pipeline. So we need to be going into schools early to engage the next generation in these amazing sustainable careers that are going to be right here in their region and in their hometowns, where they can be at the forefront of fighting climate change.
Driving huge towers deep into the seabed during construction also has an impact on marine habitats.
Nobody wants to damage the natural environment, which is the only one that we have. It's so fragile.
Already, the industry works hard to reduce the effects, and extensive research is being carried out to mitigate the impacts further.
We cannot assume that we know everything. We definitely know more than we knew a century ago. That's the thing. It's not the first time that we're putting something in the sea. We have had oil and gas. We are using ships passing by the sea all the time. So we can build on the knowledge that we have, and we must identify the gaps in the knowledge that are still missing and focus the research on those gaps to ensure that we do address all the challenges.
But quadrupling offshore wind by the end of the decade remains an enormous challenge, and some say we cannot expect it to be the silver bullet solution to driving down emissions.
I don't think that the priorities are wrong. We definitely need to switch over to low carbon energy supplies, but we need to do also those efficiency improvements so that we can reduce demand at the same time as well.
You can't compare it to anything else. You will have to feel it for yourself and look at it yourself to really get the grasp of it.
Apprentice Jessica is embarking on a career in this rapidly expanding industry. Her enthusiasm is matched only by the nation's ambitions for this form of renewable power. Whatever the future holds for our energy system, there's little doubt that offshore wind, and indeed the Humber region, will play a significant role.
Renewables is going to be the future, and personally I couldn't find myself in another job that could hopefully help the world as much as we can.
Incredible pictures there, Michael, but do you think the region can really deliver on its goals?
Well, clearly there's the ambition here to do so, and there's also the investment, plenty of it. The government's pledged millions of pounds for a new offshore wind port at North Killingholme, and more than £250 million for a huge factory to build the giant turbine towers. But there are those in this industry who say while they appreciate the money, the government needs to do much more to speed up the planning process to get these offshore wind projects online. So while there is optimism and ambition here in our region, there's also an acceptance that there are challenges to overcome if the country's to meet its offshore wind targets.
Well, let's find out if that optimism is measured back up in Glasgow, where, of course, the world leaders are meeting for COP26. James Webster is live there for us this evening. James?
Well, yes, our region does kind of sum up both the problem and some of the potential solutions, doesn't it? We've already heard how much carbon-intensive industry we have around the banks of the Humber. We also know how much of a share of the renewables sector we have too. And here in Glasgow, world leaders are really trying to have complex negotiations, working out how to have less of one and more of the other. And you know what? They're not hidden away while they're doing that. You see them walking around here. I went to get a sandwich at lunchtime. The Canadian Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, walked past me in the corridor here. They're all mingling with the other people who've come here to this conference to make their voices heard. People who we've already heard from in this programme. So the coastal erosion expert, Professor Dan Parsons, who we heard from in Lisa's report earlier, he is here. You've got Lincoln University here showing off their eco-robot. All of those people are here making their voices heard as part of the conversation to try to find a solution to the climate change problem, a solution that won't be easy to find.
So you don't have to move from that spot.
Hello? That was James Webster up in Glasgow. Seems to have had a little bit of a technical problem there. I do apologise. Now, we're going to talk to Andy Sykes, who's going to be the plant director here at Siemens Gamesa. Thank you so much for letting us in here, Andy. It really is a pleasure. All the lads working very, very hard, and the lasses as well, on top of the blade. How do you think we're doing? Do you think that what you're doing here is making a difference?
I think the team that we have here are already making a difference, because not only have we created nearly 1,000 jobs on this site alone for direct jobs, but we've also got the indirect jobs that support this fantastic site. In addition to that, this team have already made 1,500 blades powering 3.2 million homes with clean energy.
And what about the future? I mean, you've got to double the size of this plant that you've got here on the old docks, aren't you, and create more jobs?
That's right. We're going to more than double the footprint here, and that's to allow us to make even bigger blades. Blades in excess of the ones that you see here, in fact in excess of 100 metres in length.
And apparently one turn of the 81-metre one that's behind you and is heading to Hornsea 1 can power one home for one day, just a turn.
That's right, absolutely. And so you can imagine how much bigger and how more powerful these new bigger blades will become, and how much more clean energy they can create.
Andy, thanks so much once again for allowing us to be here live with you this evening. But now we're going to go down on the farm where John Mitchell, our resident meteorologist, is there for us now. And John, when you started out in this game, did you really think you'd be standing there talking about a climate crisis of this scale?
Well, of course, Duncan, we've always had severe weather, but after 40 plus years in this business, I can honestly say that severe weather events are occurring more frequently and with more impact. In June 2007, Hull and East Yorkshire was pummeled by continuous rain when 4 times the average monthly rainfall fell. And then the city was hit by tidal flooding 8 years ago when a storm surge flooded 264 homes. Now that same surge in 2013 hit Boston in Lincolnshire. Thousands were forced out of their homes, with 600 suffering flood damage. More recently, in June 2019, the River Steeping in Wainfleet burst its banks, causing widespread flooding. But it was followed by a record-breaking heatwave at Cramwell in Lincolnshire, where 36.3 Celsius was recorded on the 25th of July. And here, at the lower reaches of the River Aire and Don, they had a month's worth of rain in 24 hours back in November 2019. And they're still feeling the effects to this day. 200 acres of farmland underwater after yet another winter of discontent. And while 8 months on, these fields look ripe for the planting of winter crops, this farmer of 50 years says it's simply no longer worth the risk.
This field now, maybe 3 times out of 4 years, we get the flooding coming across here from the overtopping of the river. We can't put winter crops in at all.
So during the winter, this is kind of left to its own devices.
Yes.
If things get worse, do you think it'll have more of an impact on you?
Well, definitely. This area where we are now, instead of being 200 acres, it'll probably be 600 acres in a few years' time.
Paul's farm's been producing sugar beet, wheat and peas here for decades, but increasingly extreme weather has left its mark, not just on his farmland, but on the nearby communities of East Cowick and Snaith. That planted the seed for many farmers like him to dedicate more land to sunflowers and hedgerows.
We've all got to try and save the climate, and I think our country is doing as much as any country in the world.
More steps are being taken just a few miles south at this farm shop in Barnby Dun. Its fresh fruit, meat and veg comes from local producers, many of which have been flooded themselves.
The low food miles helps the environment, and I'm helping friends and family members around being able to sell their products here in shop.
People from the neighbouring villages have been filling their baskets here since it reopened last year. But with world leaders mulling over ways to cut carbon emissions, shoppers aren't too sure what to make of it all. What does COP26 mean to you? Have you heard of it?
No.
It concerns me greatly, you know. I do try wherever possible to do what I can for the environment.
It's for the future, isn't it? It's important. We can't do it on our own. You try and follow what you should be doing as much as you can.
And how do you cook your sprouts?
In boiling water with a bit of salt.
So from field to fork, efforts are being made here to give farmers and communities hope of a brighter, greener future. The message being that COP or no COP, we all need to play our part. Yes, well, Paul Cooper, who we saw in that report there, this is his farm down near Snaith. And terrible times they had back there in November 2019. So the farming community is badly hit by climate change. But the good news is they are taking steps to mitigate that change. And going forward, they're going to sort of take steps to improve on that. Back to you, Duncan.
OK, John, thanks very much indeed for that. Now, we've heard tonight about the extreme weather events, the coastal erosion with Lisa Andlam at the beginning of the programme. How here in the Humber area, it is a big polluter at the moment, but we've found out about the changes that are going to take place. But we haven't really concentrated on what you can actually do. Well, Matt Price has been down to meet one family in Sheffield to find out if he can help them on the way to making a bit of a difference.
They say that small changes can make a big difference, and in a week when climate change is at the forefront of our minds, we've come to Sheffield to see how one family can make their home cleaner and greener while potentially saving hundreds of pounds a year too. Meet the Islam family, Dad Raj, Mum Shaz and 2 electricity-hungry young boys, 7-year-old Ridwan and Zach, who's 6, and their parents are keen on going green.
It wasn't probably about 10 years ago. Now I've got kids. It sort of hit me, the fact that I have to leave something better behind.
We've asked for the help of eco-warrior John Grant to offer some top tips.
Hello, I'm John Grant.
Now, the Islams are in the process of renovating their home. New windows keep the cold out, but
my concern is also where the heat leaks out. And if you're going to put blinds on, maybe you could think about blinds that reflect heat back into your home for the winter.
Shaz works from home and is on the laptop most days, while the two boys love their big telly and playing computer games too. So can we help them save a few quid on their household bills? So how long have you had this boiler? Is it fairly new, or?
Been roughly about 8 years.
8 years,
Yeah.
so...
It's starting to get towards the end of its life. You've probably got about 3 or 4 years left if you needed to. But you know, the good news is that there's some government grants that allow you some quite high-tech new replacements for this boiler, and it's called a heat pump. Now, I know you won't believe me, but a heat pump is 300% efficient.
Would you consider that a heat pump an option?
Yeah, definitely yes.
Yeah. We've also been going over the paperwork, looking at an energy rating for the house. And just by making some gradual changes, the Islams could save over £300 a year on energy.
Do you know what? It's quite easy. My top tip for making a change is actually, rather than change something quickly and without any thought about it, is to come up with a plan, a house plan. So look at your house as it is now and think about how it might be in the future.
The stuff when we speaking to John, we've realised, oh wow, something simple as that, if we were told, we could probably change it. I feel like maybe there needs to be a bit more information out there.
This is just one house in Sheffield, but by making some simple changes, one step at a time, the Islams could themselves save money and help save the planet too. Matt Price, ITV News.
Well, John, the great bloke that he is, has come up with a blog and some top tips which he has put on our website. It's the usual address, it's itv.com/calendar. We have bombarded you with a lot of facts and details this evening, so if you want to take a look at the website, you can find links to all the events that are happening at COP26 in Glasgow over the next fortnight, and you can find out helpful tips that you will have for your own family home. But that's just about it from us. Our thanks to Siemens Gamesa for hosting us live this evening. COP26 from ITV News is next, and it's going to be quite a fortnight to come. A fortnight which could be crucial for all our futures. According to many, it's our best last chance. A chance to turn back the tide, perhaps, and allow homeowners like Alan and those who will come after him to live beside the seaside. A chance to invest in renewable energy and apprentices like Jessica, whose passion for wind power is a beacon of light itself. And a chance to provide a future for Ridwan and Zach and generations to come that is free from climate fear. From all the Calendar team, thanks for watching. We'll see you all again tomorrow night at 6. A very good night to you.
Bringing you blue skies and sunshine. TUI sponsors ITV Yorkshire Weather.
Thank you. Good evening. What a wet and windy start it's been to the week. Better news over the next few days. The ground will be allowed to soak up some of the water. It's settling down weather-wise. A bit of brightness even over the next few days or so. The isobars begin to just slacken off through tomorrow, so we lose today's blustery wind. Still showers around as we go through the next few days, but settling down nicely across northern England in the run-up to the weekend. Some sunshine on offer, but a few showers perhaps for North Sea coasts. In the meantime, this evening, showers will tend to die away. It'll become largely dry, clear. Just a touch chilly tonight, rurally perhaps down to around 3 or 4 Celsius. We're getting down into grass frost territory now, particularly for rural parts of Lincolnshire, Derbyshire and South Yorkshire tonight. And a mainly dry start to tomorrow, when the sun will be rising at 2 minutes past 7, setting just before 4:30 tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow then, more sunshine on offer than today from the word go. 1 or 2 showers, but largely dry conditions, a very light breeze. So temperatures will climb to around 11, 12 Celsius. It's around average for the time of year, but because it's not as blustery, hopefully it won't feel quite as cold. very small risk of an isolated shower tomorrow. But lots of dry weather as we head into the next few days or so. So better news from Wednesday onwards. A few showers certainly for North Sea coast through the middle part of the week, and one or two of these perhaps encroaching inland just a little bit. But it is settling down on the whole across northern England from Thursday onwards, with some sunshine to look forward to. A little bit chilly perhaps by night, down to 3 or 4 Celsius, certainly Thursday night. But there's some sunshine to end the working week. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors ITV Yorkshire Weather.